The Blue Jays season is over, and that's been very well documented over the past 12 hours here. Hopefully, you got a good night's sleep and you're not thinking about it too much this morning. However, some of the players were very upset, and understandably so, about the decision to pull Jose Berríos after 47 pitches and just 3 innings after his stuff looked impeccable, and he was really having the game of his life as a Blue Jay. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And we're a day later, the day after the Blue Jays got eliminated in unconvincing fashion, or convincing fashion, I should say, for the second year in a row. And they just didn't show up in this series in all facets of the game. Obviously, their pitching was pretty good, but you got to score more than 0 runs to go ahead and win a ball game, and they couldn't do that yesterday. They only mustered up 1 run in game one, and 1 run in 18 innings is ultimately not going to cut it in a best of three series. So the Blue Jays season is over. We do expect some big changes to come, and we expect some players to be on their way out as well, and some impending free agents, some guys that might be traded away in the offseason. And those guys that we do expect to not be there for the long haul, at least, were very vocal. And one player in particular, which we'll break down here. But Nick, just the whole situation in itself, it as the air has been cleared a bit now, it's pretty evident that it wasn't John Schneider's call. You could talk about his regular season performance all you want. It probably wasn't all that great. But the call that we're all mulling over and the call that we're all talking about to pull Jose Berríos yesterday was ultimately not his, and it was a predetermined decision that contributed to the downfall of the Blue Jays yesterday, and the players were just not happy about it.
Yeah, and we're going to break all that down before we do. Make sure the subscribe button. We're on the road to 8,500. You guys have been killing it, and so appreciate that. Let's just get right into it. We have a lot to cover, and tons of players spoke out, calling out, I guess John Schneider to a degree, the analytical department, whoever they had to call out to get their point across. Let's start with Bo Bichette, and we'll slowly go through here. So this was not about the decision. This is kind of just as a whole, which is very, very solid of Bo Bichette. He said, we got beat up 2 years in a row. I think there's a lot of reflection needed from the players, but from the organization, top down. Everybody needs to reflect and see what we can do better, and that is absolutely true. And then this was Jose Berríos on the reasoning behind him getting pulled. Honestly, I don't know. Other than that, I can't control it. Like I said, I did my best for those first 12 batters. Now, Pete, there's a lot more I'm going to get into here, but let's just get your first opinion on these first two comments. And Jose Berríos himself doesn't know. John Schneider said in his postgame interview that Jose Berríos was prepared for this to happen. Doesn't really change the fact that he was pulled. And Bo Bichette said, but called out the organization. Everybody needs to reflect, and he's not wrong.
Yeah, and Bo Bichette included also has to reflect on himself. And the numbers on the surface were very good this year. I think he had a good season, and he took some steps forward as a leader, as a defender, and just as an overall baseball player. But there's still some things in his game that he has to clean up. But that's good on him for taking accountability and for admitting that they need to be better. I mean, it was truly an unacceptable performance over the last couple of days here by the Blue Jays, and especially with the expectations that were set on this group heading into the season. They just didn't deliver. It's that simple. And we can make as many excuses as we want. The bottom line is that the game is played on the field, and it's played by the players, and the players for the majority of the season just didn't do what they had to do. So, yeah, they got to be better in all facets of the game, whether it is the front office, whether it is the players, whether it is the coaching staff. I mean, this Blue Jays team, I don't know if a total revamp is in order here. We may have overreacted after the game, saying that should trade everybody and start from scratch. You're just not going to do that. It's really hard to do that in pro sports. And when things don't go your way, usually as an organization, the coaches are to blame and the front office is to blame, and it's rarely the players that feel the repercussions. So I do expect some changes, but maybe just not the changes that we're all expecting to come to the roster. But yeah, the players were not happy. We weren't happy about the decision yesterday, and the majority of the fans, I could basically say all the fans were not happy with the decision to pull Jose Berríos yesterday.
Yeah, and again, like we discussed on our live stream yesterday, you can check that out if you want. At the end of the day, probably, like you said, it wasn't John Schneider's. At least, at the very least, we know it wasn't his, decision to make solely. it was definitely a combination of everything. And whether John Schneider wanted to make that decision deep down or not, he had to because of what he was told from the front office or whoever it was. That's what it seems like. That being said, you can still have your opinions about John Schneider and Berríos being removed. Everybody was surprised, and this was the one that Peter, I think you're referring to, is Whit Merrifield on Blue Jays taking Jose Berríos out early. I hated it, frankly. It's not what cost us the game, but it's the kind of baseball decisions that are taking away from managers and baseball at this stage of the game. And he's absolutely right. And we'll have a video about that coming up in maybe a day or two, highlighting just a few more things like that. But Peter, analytics are getting a little bit crazy. Witt wasn't happy. It doesn't really make any sense about, again, we can go over this 100 times, but the players, I didn't know how they were going to react after the game, if they were going to be supportive, if not. And obviously these guys, a couple of them, Whit Merrifield included, are free agents right now. He's no longer a part of the Blue Jays team, so he had nothing to lose, and he kind of just went at whoever made the decision. And you were right, based off this comment, it kind of goes to show taking away from managers of baseball probably wasn't purely John Schneider's decision, and they know that a lot better than us. And I don't know. And then one quick other thing here: Bo Bichette and Wally lost a 2-game. We didn't score runs. Can't win without scoring a run. So let's not act like that they're blaming that on the loss. No one did that. Offense is obviously one of the key reasons alongside this, but Whit Merrifield was not a happy camper about it, and he kind of, said what a lot of Jays fans and a lot of analysts and everyone was thinking is that sometimes you have to. You said it yourself in your tweet. You have to have a feel for the game, and whoever made that decision, whether it's John Schneider, whether it's Ross Atkins, whoever it is, needs to maybe let the game come to them a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But yeah, I will admit that maybe the Blue Jays offense lost them that game yesterday, but we were both athletes, Nick, and we know that throughout the course of a game there are ebbs and flows, and there are momentum shifts, and that shifted all the momentum
Yeah.
into the Twins' favor. And I think we can agree on this, that this Blue Jay team throughout the entire regular season just showed that they weren't the strongest mentally, and they weren't exactly laser focused at all times, and the slightest thing could have veered them off their tracks, and that's what happened yesterday. Now I'm still going to blame the offense just because they didn't show up at all in the 18 innings of playoff baseball that they had. But when you have a team that is not strong mentally, when you have a team that gets distracted very easily and makes a lot of mental errors, the slightest thing can truly take them off their course, and that's what happened yesterday. I mean, Yusei Kikuchi came out of the bullpen. The team was rolling in all facets. They had all the momentum, and then you could see the demeanor, the expression, it changed, and just the feeling, the life got sucked out of this Blue Jay team, and by a lot of the fan base as well. I mean, we all felt the same way. We're like, oh, here we go. Why do you have to make it hard on yourself? Why do you have to overcomplicate things? And that's what we all felt in that moment. And it ultimately proved to be true. It was just unfortunate the way that it unfolded. But yeah, Bo is right. You can't win with zero. I mean, the players were not happy with their performances as well. They are competitors at the end of the day. But yeah, it just wasn't a good look for anyone, and this was just totally the wrong call that kind of took the game away from them.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you can blame the offense. You can be on one side of the. I think they both work hand in hand. And like you said, you know, especially in a playoff game that you must win, every little thing is going to matter that much more. And something like that can definitely throw you off your game. And then Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got picked off, which is something for another day. And the final one, this was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Or John Schneider on Vladdy getting picked off. We've talked about it since February 14th. I think we can all look at each other in the face and say collectively, we fell short of executing what we wanted to do. And yeah, I mean, that's the way to end the discussion there, and he's ultimately right. Who knows if John Schneider will have a job coming in next year? The answer is most likely yes. That being said, I suspect some big changes to come, and a couple changes are already starting to unfold. So we're gonna have that for you in a video later today. But any quick final thoughts on the players speaking out before we wrap up?
Yeah, we waited all year for them to execute the little things, and that was the big focus heading into the season, and it somehow got worse than it was last year. So, we could talk about the coaching all we want, but we also got to hold the players accountable, and we got to hold these young guys accountable because they're just not cutting it, and they haven't cut it for the past 2 years now. So yeah, at what point do we just look at the players and say they got to be better? Stop looking for excuses. Stop blaming the hitting coach. Stop blaming this guy, this guy, this guy. look at your superstars and hold them accountable for a change.
Yeah, and I think now is the time that they need to do that more than ever. So thank you guys for watching. We'll continue pumping out the content. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.